Hello and welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have a full house. We are continuing to add folks as we go along. So we're real excited that you're here with us. Welcome to our first installment in a self-care series with us by Jones Laughlin. We are so excited to have him back with us again. He had a great series for us back, or a session back for us in December that is on our website. I do have a few housekeeping things to go over with y'all real quickly as we get started. I'm Jenny Jordan. I'm the Navy 4-H Youth Program Specialist, and I get the privilege of working at NC State University on this project. We are recording today's session. So if you don't want your name, you don't want to be seen, or you don't want to be heard, go ahead and turn that mic off and the camera. We will ask too during our session, because we are recording, if you will go ahead and keep your microphone off until you're called on. Now, the neat thing about Jones is he's going to have a lot of interaction. We're going to have some breakout room activities. And during all of those, of course, open those mics back up, take that mute off and so forth. But do know we are recording. For those of you who may have friends who you see this and think, man, they need to see this, we'll have it up. It'll probably take a couple days, but we'll put it online on our 4hmilitarypartners.org site. It'll also be linked to the partnership site as well, so that you can go on. And Jones is kind enough to share with us also his PDF of the PowerPoint. So if you're a ferocious note taker like I am, and you need to pause your note taking for just a second because you missed something or whatever, know that you'll get a complete set of the slides with when we're done. You're not going to have to go back and try to screenshot everything or anything like that. I am going to drop in just a second a handout that I should have done as we were getting started in the notes. If you want to take a peek at that or print that out, you'll have that as well. And if you have not already, it's very helpful to us if you'll go ahead and put your name and your organization or who you represent in the chat box, so we know who all we have with us. Listen up too, because during the session, Jones is going to have some great giveaways for us. Y'all, I'm so excited that Jones Laughlin is back with us. He is a noted speaker and author. I read Juggling Elephants years ago and absolutely loved it, and was so excited the first time I got to hear him speak. I definitely could be like one of those fan club groupies of his, because I just love everything that he shares with us every time. But in addition to being this notable speaker, coach, author, most importantly for our group, he is a 4-H volunteer and a 4-H parent. We were talking right beforehand, and he was talking about 4-H deadlines on things. So not only does he come to us with this great experience and his wealth of knowledge, but he also is part of us because he does have that 4-H background. I'm not going to continue to babble any longer. I'm going to go ahead and let Jones take the reins. I will be putting in that chat box that handout that also will be posted along with the PDF and the recording. So Jones, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny, for that very kind introduction. It's always great to be with this group. I so appreciate all the things that you folks do to help children and families, especially with this group too, the soldiers and their families, the people who are serving in whatever capacity. It's just such a unique opportunity that you have, and one that I know you give so much to. I have had the privilege of working with both on the 4-H side, but also on the CYP side with other groups. Just incredible the things that you do at such an important time in their lives. And so I'm honored to be asked back anytime, I can offer something of value to help you in your role. And we're going to be talking about you today, and that's what's exciting, and you and self-care. One other thing to add, Jenny mentioned it, we're going to do something a little different today. We will be, I'll be saying something like, hey, Jenny, grab that person's name who made that comment. And when I say that, then we're going to be sending you, or I'll be sending you a link to an Amazon Kindle book that I have found of value, as it talks about self-care, taking care of yourself. Now, the good news is, if you're not a Kindle user, that's okay. You can convert that into an Amazon gift card and buy something for yourself. So, you can practice some self-care that way, or you could use it to buy a different book. But that's just the way I'd like to do it. It makes it a little easier. You don't have to look for something in the mail. I know some of you are working from home and other places. So we want to make it easy on you as we go through our time together today. With that, I am going to share my screen just to begin to get us headed in the right direction for today. So let me get that up here. There we go. Excellent. Now I'm gonna get my chat box back up so I can see what you wonderful folks are saying in the chat, and give me just a moment. Jenny mentioned technical difficulty a moment ago. There it is. I knew that chat would show up at some point. Sometimes my chat doesn't work like it's supposed to, and so I have to go in and change some things out. All right, there we go. Excellent. All right, here we go. First chance for a prize, even before we get started with the content today. How about that? I'm feeling generous today. When I say go, I want you to type this answer into your chat, and I might say, like, Jenny, grab the third, fourth, and fifth one, or something like that, of these answers. I don't know what I'm going to say yet, because I don't know till it comes out of my mouth. Here we go. I want you, when I say go, type in something that you have done for yourself today. Go. Type in something you've done for yourself today. All right. Jenny, if you will take the first, fifth, and 10th response of those. So I'm just kind of watching to see what type of things show up. Seeing lots of good things show up as we go through. Okay, we got that. Okay, seeing lots of great things. Wake up and brush your teeth. Yeah, we are so appreciative of that, even though this is a virtual presentation. Thank you for that. Talk to a friend. Wow, Karen, thank you. That's so important. Grace says she did some journaling. Oh, another one of the things that I find so helpful. Brenda says I did breakfast. Yeah, lots of great answers there. But Jenny, if you would take that first, fifth, and I think I said 10th. Did I not say that? I think I did. Responses there. Those three folks will get something from me from Amazon. As far as those things go. So thank you. And that means that because the number of responses we saw, that you understand the importance of it. However, for many of you, it may not be something you practice regularly. And if you'll notice, the title of our session today is not 5 ways to do self-care. Today's presentation is on 5 essential strategies to make self-care a higher priority. Here's my premise today. My premise is you already know some of the things you ought to be doing. It's just not easy for you to do them. And because of that, you just, oh, I'm so busy with other things, taking care of other people, I'm just not going to do it. And we want to stop that. We want to give you the opportunity today to develop a plan that will allow you to make self-care a higher priority, because it's easier, because it's built into your schedule. And that's the type of thing that we're going to be looking at today. Now, I know some of you are sitting there going, oh, Jones, what I really wanted was some ideas for self-care, and I'm not so concerned about a plan. I just want some quick ideas. Well, I got you covered. Okay, so let me go ahead and get to those. Here are some of my favorite self-care exercises, if you will. That I like to use sometimes. Ending your shower with cold water. Now you say, that's not self-care, that hurts. But here's the thing, it is self-care because it activates endorphins in your body. It activates your body's immune system. When I go out running each day, I typically, if I'm outside, I like to run in cold weather because it just causes your body to come alive. And it actually helps with fighting off disease, sickness, that kind of thing, because you've activated your immune system in such a powerful way. Practice 20-20-20. Now, what is 20-20-20? 20-20-20 very simply is, so many of you spend a lot of time in front of your screens. And if you do, then one of the things I encourage you to do is practice 20-20-20. 20 means every 20 minutes, you look at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds. It's good for your eyes to do that. It also helps with some refocus. And of course, you don't have to set a timer for every 20 minutes. Maybe you do it at the bottom of the hour. If you notice it's top of the hour, if you notice it's bottom of the hour, you just look away. Something that's at least 20 feet away for 20 seconds. And it's a mental break, it's an emotional break, but it's also a physical help to you. Unfollow people who bring you down. I am so grateful to my wife, Lisa, for practicing this so well with us on social media. She and I share a Facebook account because it just works better for us that way. And now I have my own Jones Laughlin Facebook page as a business. You're welcome to go like that. But as far as personally, we have a Jones and Lisa Laughlin Facebook page. And my wife started probably probably 3, 6 months ago, started going through and unfollowing or at least muting people who are constantly negative or draining. Because I'd gotten to the point where I didn't like even going on to Facebook and looking at my news feed, because there was just so much stuff on there that brought me down, made me feel worse. And so she started doing that. And the other night, I got to tell you, I was on I pulled up Facebook and I was sitting there going through it. And I thought, something's different. I went, oh yeah, I'm actually enjoying this, because those people who are so negative and who don't add to my life, they're muted or they're gone, so that it helps me to be more positive. Breathe to 4, 7, 8. Great strategy. You inhale to the count of 4. You exhale, or excuse me, yeah, inhale to the count of 4, hold it to the count of 7, and then release it to the count of 8. When you inhale, that increases your blood pressure. That's why the 4, get that air in there. 7 is to hold it, because it just kind of, centers you, and then breathe out slowly to the count of 8. That reduces your blood pressure. A great strategy to I encourage you to try. Only check your phone after your morning routine. This goes back to that pouring into you before you pour out into other people. If you immediately check your messages or your text or email or social media first thing in the morning, chances are it's going to go ahead and cause you to tense up for the day. I typically don't check any of my social media accounts. I might have to look at my text just because I activate my phone when I want to pull up a podcast first thing in the morning, but I typically don't start checking that other stuff till at least about 8:15, sometimes as late as 9 o'clock, simply because I want to pour into myself to get myself in the best position possible to be able to deal with all the stuff of the day. So only check your phone after your morning routine. Stretching, and we're not talking about tough stuff here. We're talking about if you just simply take and put your arm above your head, and pull it across a little bit, just doing some things to stretch, because we sit at those computers so long and we hunch ourselves over, and just finding yourself stretching in some way, it's just so helpful. And then finally, do nothing for 10 minutes. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. No phone, no nothing. Just, even if you have to set a timer, and somebody said, well, Jones, I'd fall asleep. Good for you. Go ahead and fall asleep. You probably need it. So another strategy there. Okay, so those are some quick tips and ideas. Been great to see you. We'll see you next time. No, just kidding. But these are some ideas to kind of get you thinking a little bit and maybe give you some tips as we're moving into the day. Let's get to more of the meat of our session today, and that very simply is, we're talking about self-care, and what is self-care? Self-care. I'm sorry. Let me go back. Self-care very simply is a conscious act you take to improve your own well-being. A conscious act you take to improve your own well-being. Now, we're going to expand what you consider self-care today, but it's something you do to improve yourself. It's a big part of what I talk about and teach about. Jenny mentioned my book, Juggling Elephants, and I talk about you having 3 rings in your life, and of course, one of those rings is a self ring, and that's where you, of course, would spend some time and energy taking care of yourself as it relates to your health, your hobbies, your spirituality, and your interest, those kinds of things. So that's where it becomes important. Now let's find out a little bit about where you are and what your thoughts are about self-care, if we could. I'm going to launch our first poll of the day, so that you can begin to give your comments and see how maybe your thoughts relate to other people. So here's our first polling question of the day. What's the biggest reason you give for not having a healthy self-care plan? What's the biggest reason you give for not having a healthy self-care plan? Okay. Seeing several answers, different answers show up. This is interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're at about 57%. I normally like to get about 90 if we could. We got 56 participants today, so we're getting close on that. Thank you for responding. Okay. All right. We are at 74%. Again, I'm hoping for 90% by 1 minute. What's the biggest reason you give for not having a healthy self-care plan? What's the biggest reason you give for not having a healthy self-care plan? We've got about 5 seconds left. We're not going to hit 90% this time, but that's okay. We will hope for that next time. All right, we've been 1 minute. I'm going to end the polling. I'm going to share the results. Look at those answers. First of all, you say, I don't have time. That's one of the answers. But the number one answer, 33%, is I'll have more time later. Yeah. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But yeah, we say, I'll have more time later. And then 28% said I don't have time. 23% said I don't have anyone to hold me accountable. Yeah, isn't that so true? You get in the circle or work with folks who also don't practice it, and you wonder why you don't practice it. And then, 7 of you said, other people need me, which is true. They do need you. I'm so glad that nobody put that it's too expensive, because it certainly isn't in that way. Before I bring up the second polling question, so we can kind of get a feel for where you are today, I want to respond to something Raymond just put into the chat. I really like what he says there. Work-life balance doesn't exist. And Raymond, I agree. It's not about balance. It's about presence. It's about being in the right place at the right moment, or as I say in Juggling Elephants, being in the right ring at the right moment. And what I find is, for me anyway, if I haven't taken care of myself in the way that I should, I can't be my best in the work that I'm trying to do, or even be fully present with my wife or children or friends in my relationship, or in my relationship part of my life. So yeah, I typically agree with you. It's not about balance. It's about presence. Balance implies that a static state when things aren't changing, and our lives are always changing. So I just wanted to jump in and say that, Raymond, I think that's so important. I see Victoria just put a great comment in the chat. All right, I'm going now to change. See, I cancel that. Let me stop sharing those results. Let me find out a second question about what you're thinking today. Here's one. What's the minimum amount of time a meaningful self-care activity requires? What's the minimum amount of time a meaningful self-care activity requires? Meaningful amount of time. Thank you for your answers. Oh, wow. We're already at 70%. We're not even 30 seconds yet. Fantastic. Okay. 77%. Looks like we're going to top out at around 79% again. There's 43 out of 54 of you are engaged, and the rest of you are listening and engaged in that way. Somebody else jumped in this time. Thank you. We're at 81% on that one. All right. I'm going to give it 3 more seconds. Then I will end the polling. Okay. And then let me share the results with you. Glad to see this. Yeah. Minimum amount of time, a tie. 41% of you said 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You can do a meaningful self-care activity. And then some of the rest of you said, yeah, about 30 minutes. And somebody said, yeah, I think it takes longer. And we should have all of different ones built into our lives, not just the short ones, and certainly not just the long ones. I would go so far as to say that you can engage in a meaningful self-care activity in less than 1 minute. Think about that exercise I gave you of 4, 7, 8. I mean, if you think about it, if you can 4 seconds, 7 seconds, and 8 seconds, that's 19 seconds. And you could do that twice. You could do that 3 times, couldn't you? You could do that 3 times easily in 1 minute. I'm telling you, when you do that, you'll find that you feel better, which is one of the hallmarks of self-care, doing something that makes you feel better. Finally, let's get our third question up here. Get to that question. Now, this one's a tough one. You're going to have to think a long time about this one. So stay with me, okay? So here's your last question for our polling. I find that I'm a better version of myself when I do engage in more self-care. Okay. Oh, there's discrepancy here. I'm surprised. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. While we're waiting on those poll results, Patricia, I love your comment. It's less of an issue to fit in if I do multiple small moments. Yeah, we want the big ones, but if we can't get the big ones, then how can we build in the small ones? So great comment there, Patricia. on that. Okay, we're at 74%. I was going to see, yep, a couple more people chiming in. I'll give you about 5 more seconds, then I will end the polling here. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm going to end the polling. Guess what? Ta-da! 100% of you said, I am a better version of myself when I do engage in more self-care activities. Wow. See, we're all on the same page. So the question, I don't have to convince you today, which I knew I didn't. I don't have to convince you today that self-care is valuable. The job on my shoulders is to make sure I show you a way to make it happen more effectively and more consistently in your life. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So how do we do that? How do we make sure that self-care becomes a bigger part of who we are? And I said there were 5 ways we're going to talk about that today. Here is the first one. I think one of the keys that you have to do is you have to stop lying to yourself. You know it's valuable, but then you lie to yourself. You gave the comments a moment ago. One of them, I don't have time. Well, go back to what we talked about earlier. What do you mean you don't have time? It's not a long process. It's, you can engage in self-care very quickly and without a whole lot of input or, other things going on. And so you do have time. So that's not the issue. I would be willing to wager if I looked at your schedule or watched, your schedule or watched what you're working, I would probably find at least maybe 2 or 3 opportunities during the day when you had 3 to 5 minutes to engage in self-care and you chose to do other things or you chose not to use that time as wisely. When you were commuting back and forth to work, I know some of you are working from home. Think about that commute time and how you do have time to use that for self-care if you would. Waiting on someone, I have found that when I'm in a moment of waiting for someone, I've learned to use that for self-care. I will, maybe look in my app where I keep my gratitudes and kind of flip through those, or I will simply, do some breathing to help me to kind of, get centered back on where I need to be and the things I ought to be thinking about. So, that's a tough one to support. The second one, other people need me. Yeah, you're right. Other people need you to be at your best. They need you to be at your best. And you just told me, those of you who replied to the polling question a few moments ago, you just told me that you are a better version of yourself when you engage in more, um, you know, self-care activities. So they do need you. They need you to be at your best so you can be fully present, so you can give them the best ideas, so you can be the most support to them. That's not a lie this time on that question. It actually is the truth, but they need you to be at your best, and self-care gives you the opportunity to do that in those moments. So thank you for sharing your honesty a few moments ago about that. Now the last one, I'll have more time later. I'll have more time later. That was the number one answer, remember, for what we were talking about earlier as far as self-care. Yeah, is Dr. Phil McGraw would say, how's that working for you? It's not. That time never comes because taking care of ourselves is not so much a matter of having the time, it's a mindset. Do you hear me? Yeah, I think it's a mindset more so than it is a matter of time. It's, you know what? I matter. And if I'm going to be my best in the work that I do, in the life that I live, then I've got to take better care of myself. And we've already established that it's not going to, take a lot of time. So we've established that it's necessary. It's necessary. Now, I want you to be able to speak it to say, yep, I know this is important. So in just a moment, we're going to our first of 3 breakout rooms today. And when you're in your breakout room this first time, then what I'd like for you to do is you can just give your name. You don't have to give all the details about, where you're based at and all those kind of things. But, I just give your name so people know who you are, even though it's on the screen. We like to say our name. But how do you recognize that an improved self-care plan, not just self-care, here and there, but how do you recognize an improved self-care plan would be of value to you? How would a improved self-care plan be of value to you? And I say leader, I'd love for the first person who goes to be the person in your group who has the shortest hair. Okay, has the shortest hair. So in my group, if I was in that group, one of the groups, I would probably be one of the ones going first. But who's the person with the shortest hair? They would be the ones who are going first. Now, before we go to our breakout rooms, let me say this. In fact, I should have said this at the beginning. The term self-care is, shall we say, can be a little off-putting to some people, because they're like, oh, it sounds so soft, and it gives the image of somebody, at the land of unicorns and pixie dust and that kind of stuff. And so and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan. Just like work-life balance, I'm not a huge fan of the phrase work-life balance, but it's the go-to phrase. It's the one that everybody else understands. It used to be people say, hand me a Kleenex. Well, there's all kinds of companies that make tissues, but that's one of the first ones who came out with one. So we just got naturally used to saying Kleenex. When we say self-care, even though the term's been around since 1841, some people kind of, cringe at that a little bit. Understand, while it's not a perfect phrase, the idea to me is critical, is that we do a better job of taking care of our own needs so we can better meet the needs of others. And so whether you use the term self-care, taking care of yourself, and juggling elephants, I say the self ring. But how do you recognize that an improved plan of taking care of yourself would be of value to you? How would you be a better person? And be specific about how it would be of value to you in your work or into your relationships, however it's important to you. Now, in just a moment, Jenny is going to send you the invitation. You're going to be invited to go to a breakout room. It'll be roughly 5 of you in each one. We're going to give you about 6 minutes for this first one. Well, we better do 7, hadn't we, Jenny? Because they got to say who they are and talk a little bit and get used to it and all that. But we'll give you 7 minutes. You'll get a warning that tells you when you need to come out of the room. I can't remember if the warning will be 30 seconds or 1 minute before. But we're going to give you 7 minutes with this other group and just talk to each other about how would it make you a better person. And remember, today is about you. It's okay to talk about you today and how you want to improve or be a better version of yourself. With that, Jenny, I'll turn it over to you to get them to the breakout rooms. So some of you are beginning to make your way back into the main meeting room. So we're glad that you're here. The rest of them, there come some more of you running down the hall. I love the visual I give myself whenever people are coming back from breakout rooms, because it's like, you see them walking down the hall, and then you see some people kind of veer off and they go, they had to run to the bathroom, or some people go over here and they go to the snack table and they got to grab something up. Somebody else saw somebody they haven't seen in a long time. Oh, good to see you. I'm sorry, I'm getting carried away here. Now it looks like we've got everybody back, so let's get started. Let's give away another item here for those of you who are participating. I want you to type into the chat, how would an improved self-care plan help you to be more effective at work? How would an improved self-care plan help you to be more effective at work? Type any answers into the chat. Go. All right. Jenny, let's take the 7th and 14th. We're going to have 14. Yeah, there you go. Less stress, more focus, allows better managed task. So many ways. Oh, Charlene, I'm sorry, it rolled past me so quickly, but she was typing with the caps on. Yeah, good vibes does. That's it. If you're more present and you're more relaxed, other people are going to recognize that as well. So thank you for your answers. 7th and 14th person there, Jenny, will be receiving something from me related to taking better care of yourself. All right. So thank you for your answers in that. You've established that it was important. So we got the first one. We're not going to lie to ourselves. We know it would be a value. The second idea is you got to assess your needs. Now, here's where we're going to go a little larger, because when we think about self-care, we immediately think about our physical needs. In that way, and then we might think a little bit about our mental and emotional, but we don't always expand it as far as I think we should. And I say that to myself as much as others. Sometimes when you talk about assessing your needs, I think it's important to go take an assessment. If you need an idea of a couple quick ones, and I know many of you are connected, or all of you are connected in some way with a university or a 4-H program that's connected to a university. Here are two that are really fun to take, that you might want to look at. The Berkeley Wellbeing Quiz, and I put the title of it at the bottom so you can just go search on the internet and you'll find it. One of the things I really like about the Berkeley Wellbeing Quiz is that it will, when you put your answers in, yeah, you got to put your email, but one of the things I have found is they don't spam you once you send them, send this in, but they will send you a report that'll actually give you some quick tips about what to do related to all the different areas that are in their well-being survey. And I really like that. If I'm going to take an assessment, give me some answers. And this one does, and it's free. Both of these are. The other one's from our friends at the University of Minnesota, the Gophers. This one is another simple one that just will kind of help you to look at all the different areas related to self-care. Now, when I say all the different areas, there's different ways to look at it. Let's just take one in our minds. You don't have to type anything into the chat yet, but look at this one. This is one that I just pulled up, but it just helps me to think about it. Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on your current level of self-care in the following areas. And you've got a rating there of 1 to 10, with whatever level of self-care you're providing those areas. But think about all these different areas. Physical self-care we get. That's the exercise. It's the breathing. It's the diet that we have. Mental, all the stuff going on. The mental overload, our brain. Then we've got the emotional, which is what are we engaging in that's either increasing our emotional energy or taking it away? The highs and lows of the day, and especially as many of you work with people who are in, they're fairly stressful situations, that drains you. And so, that's something that might be of value to you. Then the spiritual one, think about that phrase, spiritual self-care. And spiritual, we mean thinking about something that's bigger than you are, and how you fit, and whatever your interest or whatever your area is there. That's what we mean by spiritual, is focusing on something bigger than yourself, because that kind of sometimes helps you to have perspective. Financial self-care, and that's one I hadn't thought about. As I read more about it, I thought, makes sense. It's thinking about not just how you're doing, but what are you doing to help yourself financially, that helps you to go and that may be having conversations with others who can help you feel good about your investments or the things that you're doing. It may be others who are talking to you about ways to better save money. I mean, one of the financial self-care things I do, I try to do it. In fact, I don't do it every day, but about 2 or 3 times a week, the last 30 minutes of the day in my office, I love to pull up the Clark Howard podcast, and I just listen to it. It's kind of in the background, but he always gives some really basic advice that even a Yahoo like me can understand. And so I just love listening to that, kind of finding out how I'm going. That's self-care. That's financial self-care to me, because it makes me better in that area. Relational self-care, I gave you an idea at the moment about relational self-care, is about unfollowing those people on social media who are draining to you or who frustrate you, or maybe relational self-care. I had a friend who really needed to have a tough conversation with a family member the other day, and they were talking to me about it. And I talk them through how having that conversation is a form of self-care, because they were holding on to so much that if they would have that conversation, it would cause them to go, boy, that's really a load off my shoulders. And so, that's what I mean by relational self-care. Professional self-care, again, what are you doing that's helping you to feel better in that area. That's what we're talking about when we talk about professional self-care. What are you doing to help yourself, at work or when you're at work, the things that you have going on at work, to make you, a better version of yourself. And so some of you may look at some of these areas and go, man, I'm not so sure. And that's okay. If you come out of nothing, if you come out of this part of my presentation with nothing else other than going, yeah, self-care is about more than just eating right and exercise and taking, time for myself. I think there's lots of areas where we need to practice better self-care. So once you've assessed your need, and I appreciate those of you who put a link to a form in the chat over there about that. It's building a plan. Now, this is where I think so many of us, myself included, tend to fall apart. We think about, when we get stressed, yeah, I need to take more time for myself. I need to do more things for myself. But we don't put it into a plan. And when we don't have a plan, it doesn't happen, does it? Because we've got so many other things going on. But how do we build the plan? And may I offer you, now this is going to get a little bit personal here, but may I offer you one of the best ways to begin building a plan for self-care, relates to this picture. um, One of the things I find interesting in all of the self-care, taking care of yourself kind of reading and things that I have been reading over the past few months to really, focus on this topic, is that getting more organized. Yeah, Amanda Murray, step one, get organized. There you go, Amanda. You're on top of this one. Is that because one of the reasons self-care doesn't happen is because you're having to expend energy on things that don't, that you shouldn't have to be spending as much energy on. And so to that point, I'll ask you the question, what's hard for you because you aren't as organized as you should be? What's hard for you because you aren't as organized as you should be? And that could be anything from, I know in my world, one of the things that was hard for me was just being able to find stuff in my basement, or just being able to use my basement for the workshop area, or when I was working on a vehicle or whatever it was. And so over Christmas, I said, time out. And so I spent some time organizing, our basement, so that I could, and I can go down there now. I can find the tools I need. I can take care of what I need much more quickly. My wonderful wife, Lisa, over Christmas, she organized our freezer. We've got all this stuff in our two freezers, and, we go down there and we open the door and we go, where is stuff at? She took the time to organize it so that if we say, hey, we need some protein for some meals this week, she can go down there, I can go down there, Cindy can go down there, open that door. There's where we keep the chicken or whatever it is, the protein source that we might want. And I love what is that Shallon said. I apologize if I said your name wrong, but literally everything is harder not being organized, from a full-time with toddler mom. Absolutely, you speak from experience, and Holly, you do as well. And so my challenge to you is, as you're thinking about developing a plan, you're right, Amanda, earlier. I don't know your last name, is Amanda Murray. But figure out some area in your life where you're not as organized as you could be, and then get organized. And that's going to free up some time. It's going to free up some energy for you to focus on self-care if you get more organized. Yeah, it's going to take more time to do it. And maybe you've got to, those of you with small children, maybe you've got to, call in a babysitter or have somebody, hey, I just need you to look after the kids for half a day while I go take care of this. But think about an area that if you were more organized, how would that free up some time for you to engage in self-care? There's so many. And Kathy, thank you for your humor there. Yeah, it's not OCD, it's CDO. I love it. The first time I heard that. All right, so building a plan. Let's move to that area. Now we provided you in the chat, I think Jeannie did, I'm pretty sure she did, a link to this handout where I have this chart and some other pieces on. We'll also be sending this to you after the presentation today. But build a plan. And so I think you've got to go through these different areas, and you've got to say, what could I do for myself daily? What could I do for myself weekly, in this way? And then once you've done that, then, it begins to be a little easier because you've got a plan for what you're going to do. And figuring out, what it is that you want to make happen in these different areas. We could spend time talking about what to do in all these different areas, but I don't think that's the issue. I think for most people the issue is just developing the plan and how do I keep it, and that's what we certainly want to focus on today. So you're going to get a copy of this to use to develop yours. Now, one of the key things about developing a plan is that I think you have to set time specific goals or time specific self-care activities. One of the things I'll hear when I'm coaching people around, time management or work-life balance is that say, I just want more time for myself. And I'll say to them, what does that look like? And once we kind of begin breaking it down, then it's a lot easier. And so I challenge you that as you're building out that plan, it's really important that put a time amount on it. How long are you going to give yourself in the morning for just you? How long do you want to read in the morning or the evening or whenever it is? Because excuse me, once you begin to give it a specific time, then you can see where it fits in your day. If you simply say generic and say, "Oh, I want to find some time for myself today," that's too broad. That's too general. It's too hard. Remember, if it's hard, you're not going to do it. So you got to make it easy. One of the ways that you make it easy is that you create a time block. This is a slide from my time management training that I do with organizations. And this is one of the things that I talk about is that it needs to be a time you build into your day, just like your work, just like your relationships, just like anything else you do. It needs to be a part of your day so that you can make it happen. Now, as you're making it happen, as you're building out this plan, let me say this, and I want to go and get this slide up here. When you start building out your plan of self-care, you're overachievers. All of you are. You're wonderful people. You want to change the world, and you are changing the world by the things you do. I really need you to take a different mindset when it comes to developing a self-care plan, especially if you're starting from nothing or doing very little. And that is set the bar really low. Set the bar really low. The book you see on the screen, Tiny Habits, in that book, BJ Fogg talks about how do you start new routines? How do you start doing things that are important to you or that you want to to stick as a part of your daily routine or weekly routine or whatever routine you're trying to develop? And he says 3 keys to success are, first of all, have a motivation. And if we think about self-care, every one of you in here listen to me, in here, yeah, everyone in here participating today, you have the motivation to take better care of yourself. So you got the M taken care of. It's the ability and the prompt that gets us in trouble. Ability is what's your capacity to engage in a new behavior. For example, if some of you are thinking, Jones, I would just love to have more time for myself, then I might say to you, well, how much are we talking about? Oh, if I could just get 30 minutes. And so then I might say to you, well, would 10 be a good starting point? You might go, well, it's not enough, but yeah, I could do 10. All right, very good. Then we've just went through the ability piece of what's the smallest amount of time that would work for you. And so in that case, that 10 minutes is what you would use. And then the prompt becomes, what's the trigger? What's the non-emotional trigger that's going to cause you to engage in that new behavior? So I might say to you, you want 10 minutes for yourself. When is that going to happen? When are you going to work to make that, that new routine make it more consistently happen in your day? That's what we're talking about in that sense. But I think that's the key is don't start big, start small. In that way. And I know somebody in the chat just mentioned Atomic Habits, phenomenal book. If you haven't read Atomic Habits, I highly encourage you to do so. All right, then the other piece before we start talking in just a moment about our next point is this whole idea of making a mantra. This is where you come up with a phrase that motivates you to engage in self-care. And so you could say I want to, or I'm worth it. I mean, whatever it is, but you come up with some phrase that whenever you feel yourself saying, well, I don't know if I really, you come up with a phrase that reminds you, you do need to engage in that self-care activity. You don't need to forfeit that opportunity to pour into yourself. Now, challenge for those of you who are chattable right now. I wonder if somebody could type in for us, what's the mantra you might use that would encourage you to engage in self-care? What's the mantra that you might use that would encourage you to engage in self-care? Feel free to type any answers in the chat. And Jenny, get ready. We may have a couple of folks who, oh, yeah, make sure Megan B, make sure we get her name on that one. All right. I want to have a happier and healthier life. Life is good. It's going to be better whenever you're engaging in more self-care. I'll be a healthier version of myself. Thank you, Michaela. I like that one. I want to enjoy what I do. Good one, Kathy, on that one. By the way, if I call out a number of someone to win, if they've already won, Jenny, go to the next one. So we only have one winner per. You understand what I'm saying? Be present in the moment. Yes, I want that person to get a resource or a book as well. That's a great answer as well. So thank you. I think that's the key, is you've got to give yourself some motivational thought to want to engage in that. All right. So then finally, before we move to this piece about spicing up your or before we move to the next idea, is I love this one. I was given this one a few years ago from the University of Kentucky. I was doing a program for their family consumer science teams, agents and groups. And somebody says, yeah, it's like spice. I'm like, what do you mean? I love this because it's easy to remember. If you need to spice up your self-care, here are the different areas you could focus on. Now, they're a little different than the ones I shared with you, but I love it because it's an acronym, so you can remember it. And of course, they added the S, somebody did the S of spirituality. But again, just a way to look at motivating you to engage in new behaviors. Now, Jenny, just to let you know, I'm going to skip this second breakout room. Engagement's really good, and I want to be mindful. I know we've got 90 minutes, but I don't want to cut short our discussion time or other people wanting to talk. So we're not going to a breakout room, so don't panic. Don't run to the bathroom because you don't want to be a part of a breakout room. Just stay where you are. We're not going to a breakout room at this one. But if I had sent you to a breakout room, one of the things that I want you to begin thinking about is, what is a self-care routine you want to start? And the key pieces there is that time piece. And then where does it fit in your day? And then, how are you going to make that a consistent routine? You've got the motivation. What's the smallest amount you could engage in that wouldn't derail your day or cause you to feel stress or frustration? And then finally, the P is, what's the prompt or what's the trigger that's going to cause you to engage in that that activity. One of the things at my home right now, as far as relational self-care with my family, because we're beginning to get busier, the year has started and things are changing and adapting, is that one of the things that I do for relational self-care is that every evening after dinner, before we wash dishes or anything, we break out bananagrams. My wife and daughter love bananagrams. I love playing bananagrams. I don't necessarily win very often, but that's just a relational self-care thing. So again, the length, well, it's however the game lasts. Usually it's not all that long. Win every evening. How do we make it a routine that sticks? It's because we do it right after dinner. And Consuelo, you are asking, yes, we will be sending you the slides as well as a recording after this session is over. We understand that some of you have to jump off after an hour. So we certainly understand that. Okay, now let's move on to our fourth idea today, creating healthy boundaries. Yeah, creating healthy boundaries. One of my other favorite books, this guy's written lots of books, and Boundaries is a great book. I've not read it because some of the key ideas from Boundaries are in Boundaries for Leaders. Look at this quote. In the end, as a leader, I'd say as a human being even, you are always going to get a combination of two things: what you create and what you allow. That's boundaries. What you create and what you allow. Said another way, without boundaries, we run the risk of losing ourselves, meaning we don't know how we feel, what we're interested in, or what we want. If you don't set boundaries, you're likely to become resentful and exhausted. I'll just let that one sink in for just a moment. Sharon Martin can certainly drop the mic on that moment. Without boundaries, we run the risk of losing ourselves. And so, as we think about boundaries and healthy boundaries that we set that give us the time and the energy to engage in the self-care that's important to us, I think that's certainly a great thought to keep in mind. Now, when we talk about boundaries, first of all, I think it's important. I love this from positivepsychology.com. It talks about how to set personal boundaries. You got to define that boundary. It's got to be specific. And if you'll notice, I have said several times today, specific amount of time. What does that look like? So much of being successful at self-care is about having a good handle on what the time looks like, when it happens, and then most importantly, making it easy, as we talked about a few moments ago. So then you got to say what you need. When it comes to defining that boundary, keeping it simple, as I said, and then you got to tell people why it's important. So I just think that's a great model if you're trying to set boundaries. One of the things that I'm going to encourage you to do, and you've got your handout's going to give you a place to capture some of these thoughts, but let's go back to what we said earlier. Think about what kind of boundaries do you need to set in all of these different areas related to self-care. What do you need to do differently than you're currently doing? And as we're thinking about boundaries, and I am going to send you to your breakout rooms in just a few minutes on this, I want to give you some of mine. Okay, here's what my chart looks like for boundaries, some of the boundaries that I have set. Notice that physical boundary. That's that I get 20 minutes for me every weekday to exercise of some kind, and I get 30 minutes on the weekend. And that's the time that I use for physical self-care. And my family knows that. People who know me well as far as when if they want to do something with me, they know, hey, Jones does those kind of things. The mental boundary I set, I talked a little bit about it earlier. No social media before 8:15 and no tech 30 minutes before bed. I mean, those are boundaries that help me to mentally be able to be more positive and, of course, sleep better. Emotional, this one's very subjective, but I've just found that I don't engage in arguments based solely on opinion. I'll listen and I'll say, interesting. But I am not going to engage in those. Now, who knows? I might if it's about Eastern North Carolina barbecue or Western North Carolina barbecue, but I'm just talking about what I'm talking about there. And you see some of the other ones that I have there, and it helps me to set those boundaries to create the space for me to either engage in self-care or just to feel better about myself, which is a hallmark of self-care. Sometimes self-care is not doing some things versus doing some things. So understand it's interesting how that can work. With that, then let's stop talking about boundaries and let's talk about what kind you need to set. Now, this time we're only going to give you 6 minutes because we're going to try to finish up everything by about 20 minutes after the hour today, because I know we say an hour and a half, but we'll try to give you plenty of time to get to the other things you need to get to. But here's what I want you to talk about with your group. What's a boundary you need to set for yourself? It can be related to any of those 7 areas, but what's a boundary you recognize that you need to set for yourself that would help you either to have time for self-care, or the act of setting that boundary itself would be self-care, because it's going to help you to feel better about yourself or be more present in other areas. It's completely up to you. So we're going to give you 6 minutes. This time the leader will be the person who's longest time current position. You just, whenever all of you get in the breakout room, you just say, I've been in my current position 20 years, 10 months, whatever. And that person doesn't have to go first. Just kind of let you know how long people have been in their positions. So with that, Jenny, I will let you send these good folks off to the breakout rooms. We'll see you back in about 6 minutes, and then we'll be ready to close it out. All right, we've got some of you coming back in slowly, I see. We're up to 18 back in the room at this point, so we're getting close. All right, more of you are walking back in. Make sure you try the chocolate chip cookies over there. They're really good. Okay, as you're coming back into the room, they're over there at the table to the left. Man, do I wish they were. Okay. Thank you, folks coming back in. Up now, we're getting pretty much everybody back in. Thank you for coming back in. It'd be exciting, and I wish if we were on site or had more time, I'd love to go around and hear, 5 or 7 of the boundaries that you wanted to set. But you heard them amongst each other, and that's what's most important. To me, this is really a key. And Michelle, you put you put it out to everyone, so I'll just repeat it. Michelle says, I need to set boundaries. I can feel the impact in my personal life. Sure, you can. Even something as simple as checking your email at 8 o'clock at night, your work email, if there's something there that you go, oh, I'm going to have to work on that tomorrow. I mean, even if it's not a deadline kind of thing, but even if it's not something positive, even if it's just another task or somebody says something, it's amazing how that can completely change the feel of the rest of your evening. And then you carry that to bed, and you just aren't as relaxed. You wake up next morning and it's occupying your thinking. And I just think that it's so important when you can to set some boundaries that give you that opportunity to be who you want to be in that moment. I think that's what's just so important about self-care. So thank you for taking that first step in setting some boundaries. Our final point for today is to make imperfect progress. Developing a self-care plan is very different than engaging in self-care. Developing a self-care plan is all about saying, I'm going to start putting these pieces in place consistently because I know it's going to help me be a more effective employee, a more effective family member, and just more effective in all the things that I do. What happens, however, is that we set these huge goals or expectations of ourselves, and then we fail. And then we get upset with ourselves. Well, I'm just not going to do it. And that's why I invite you to make imperfect progress. Don't set yourself up to fail. Set yourself up saying, I'm going to fail. But as long as I'm moving forward a little bit, then it's better than what I had before. I love what Mark Twain said, imperfect progress beats postponed perfection. Just because you can't do 30 minutes of self-care in the morning doesn't mean you can't do 5 minutes of self-care in the morning. And Suzanne, thank you. Yeah, I have to keep repeating the mantra, progress, not perfection. Am I engaging in more self-care than I was last week or last month? And what's my plan to continue improving in this whole realm of self-care? That's really a key. So as we begin kind of winding things down, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask some questions and make comments here in just a moment. The thing, if you come away from this session or nothing else, I hope it's, what's one small behavior you want to make part of a routine, not one thing you want to start doing and then just leave it there. I want to start working out more. No, that doesn't cut it. I want to walk 15 minutes a day after dinner, or I want to stretch for 5 minutes before I get my children up or before I, start something else. I am going to eat lunch away from the workspace that I have so that I can think about something other than work. Those are behaviors that you can make part of a routine so that you can, be your best in that moment. And those are some things to do. And Vivian, Joe, I appreciate yours. You got a big list there. Tanya, I appreciate that. Replace TV with music. Yeah, because the great thing about music, that's one that's is a big one for me, is that I would much rather have music playing because it's kind of background. It doesn't keep me captive. I can read while listening to music. Michaela, stepping away from the desk for screen breaks. Excellent idea there. And if you can't step away from your screen, remember the strategy we talked about in the beginning, 20, 20, 20. All right. With that, before I give you a closing quote and some One last piece of information. I'm going to stop right there and see if someone wants to unmute their mic and ask a question, make a comment. I mean, this time is yours. And then again, I've got a couple more slides I want to show, and then we'll close it out. So questions from your perspective or comments? Everybody got quiet on us. No questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Victoria.
I really do appreciate your motivation and encouragement. Your voice is awesome. Like
Thank you.
it's making me want to be better and to really start setting boundaries for myself, because I have a crazy life, which I'm sure everyone else does. But I came into this training thinking that this was just going to be a dumb regular training, but I got so much more out of it. And I'm not saying that they're all dumb, but it's like it's the regular training. But I just came into it like, oh, okay, we just got to get another training done. But I got so much more out of it, so I really do appreciate it.
Oh, Victoria, well, thank you. And before you mute yourself, Victoria, what's one boundary? You said you need to set some boundaries. What's one boundary you recognize you need to set for yourself?
I need to set a boundary for myself with like mentally and physically, just telling myself no, you need to go take time to yourself, because I don't give myself that time. It's always my kids, school,
Right.
work, husband.
Right.
So it's just setting that boundary to say, nope, go take 20 minutes to yourself.
Okay. And Victoria, when are you thinking that might happen? In fact, I'm going to take it down. You said 20. I'm going to take it to 10. Okay. I'm going to take it to 10 because we want this to happen. When do you see yourself giving yourself 10 minutes to engage in some self-care?
Right after I put my toddlers to bed and before I start school. So
Gotcha.
usually that's 8:30 at night, and then I'm like being right into school, and I don't give myself time. So I feel like that's a good time frame.
Beautiful.
So like
Yeah.
instead of 8:30, yeah.
Yeah, so that 8:30 to 8:40 or 8:30, 8:45, something like that. You're going to say, this is my time, and planning it ahead. That's the key too. It's not just saying, I'm going to take some time for myself. What am I going to do? I mean, have something planned. Maybe there's a TikTok playlist that you like to watch, or maybe there's, just some kind of a couple songs that really just kind of take you away for, a few minutes or something. Or maybe there's a certain, food that you enjoy eating, or maybe just looking out a window. Of course, it'd be dark this time of year, unless you're in California, it'd be dark that time of night. But yeah, planning it ahead so you got it to look forward to. What happens is that if we don't plan it, we catch ourselves in that moment. Oh, I got 15 minutes. What am I going to do? Then we wind up going for the jar of peanut butter. I'm sorry, it's a little personal there. Jar of peanut butter and a spoon. But you know what I'm saying is planning those things that you would enjoy doing for 15 minutes ahead of time, so you're looking forward to them and you'll want to make them part of your day. So thank you, Victoria, for your comments and for being here today, and most importantly, for what you do for others. So anybody else? And then we'll close it out.
I have a comment.
Okay.
I think my biggest takeaway today has been the mantra: progress, not perfection.
Yeah, that's a good one, Tanya. Is progress, not perfection. What am I doing better than I did a week ago, a month ago? Those types of things. All right, let's close this out. I love this quote I found a few months ago. Self-care is never a selfish act. It is simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer to others. Isn't that great? And I'm glad I didn't say it because I can brag about it. Parker Palmer. Yeah, it's never a selfish act. It's simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer to others. Wow. Love that one. By the way, you'll be getting a PDF of this, and then we're making a recording of this, so you're going to get this. So don't worry if you can't find your phone right now to screenshot this. You're in good shape. Finally, I'll always put these up at the end. I offer resources related to some of the things that we've talked about today. You see my email there. I know several of you already own my subscriber list, and I appreciate that. But you see how to get some of my resources there. You send an email either with the subject weekly or subject monthly, and we'll get you we'll get you signed up for that. So I'll leave that on the screen for another couple seconds while Jenny is queuing up to tell you what you need to know at the end of this presentation. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and Jenny, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you, Jones. Another fabulous session. Just a few quick reminders. If you came in late, or if you know someone who jumped off early, or you know someone who just needs to hear this, we will post it on 4hmilitarypartners.org. It'll be posted either this evening or tomorrow, probably. So go check out the website. Along with that will be the handout that Jones referenced and the PDF. If your name was called out, you'll be getting an email that will tell you about your great prizes. We had about 8 folks. I think I got them all in the chat as we went along. So y'all look for some wonderful resources from Jones. And don't forget, this is the first in a series. So again, if you know someone who missed it, they can still sign up for the second and third. Think of it like a television show. You don't have to have seen the season before to understand the next one, although it might help you. But if you need to binge watch, you can go back. So, but that next one is in about 2 weeks. It'll be from 1 to 2:30. Again, the topic is on self-care. And we'll be looking at, we have 2 more sessions coming up, that second and third. So Jones, can you rattle the titles off the top of your head? Because I sure can't.
No, I can't. I just know the next one is about work, how to make sure self-care habits related to work. The last one is going to be self-care and relationships. And they'll be a little different because we're not just going to, go back over the things we talked about today. There's different ways to manage, I think, both as it relates to work and as it relates to those relationships. So I've got some new ideas and things I'll be sharing in those.
So I don't think there'll be a test at the beginning of the next one that says, how well did you do on your boundaries or your mantra? But certainly we hope that you'll join us back to think about how we make this work at work, and then also how we do in relationships. In the meantime, we hope that y'all have a great week wherever you are, a great rest of your day, no matter what part is. Jones, thanks again for being with us. And on behalf of the SciFar Professional Development and Technical Assistance team, we're really excited that you joined with us today. So thank y'all so much and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you all.